The fight world thrives on conflict, but not all of it happens inside the cage. This week, UFC fans witnessed the perfect storm of controversy, intensity, and emotional outbursts, a dramatic confrontation between current light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira and former middleweight champion turned analyst Michael Bisping. What started as a casual media interaction quickly erupted into a fiery exchange that shook the MMA community. While that dramatic showdown took center stage, another mouth-watering development quietly stole headlines. A potential dream fight between Diaz and Max Holloway, two of the most beloved and violent fan favorites in UFC history. Both stories have set social media ablaze, and if the dust settles the way fans are hoping, we might be on the brink of one of the wildest chapters in recent UFC memory. Let's dive deep into what triggered the Pereira versus Bisping face-off, the wild reactions from the MMA world, and how a potential Nate versus Max superfight is being shaped by both nostalgia and unrelenting hunger. The heated Pereira-Bisping encounter, what sparked the fire? It happened backstage during UFC 304 Fight Week in Manchester. Pereira, who was scheduled to do a media tour in anticipation of his next title defense, came face-to-face with Michael Bisping, who was present as part of the UFC's broadcast team. The exact trigger for the confrontation? It appears to stem from months of subtle jabs Bisping had taken at Pereira on air and through his podcast, particularly questioning Pereira's takedown defense and calling him one-dimensional. Pereira, known for his stoic nature and lethal left hook, confronted Bisping directly. Eyewitnesses reported the light heavyweight champ approached Bisping with an icy glare and, without raising his voice, told him plainly, "You've said enough about me. You don't understand me. Stop disrespecting me." Bisping, never one to back down, reportedly responded with a sarcastic laugh and said, "Mate, it's my job to analyze fighters. If you don't like it, win and prove me wrong." That's when things took a sharp turn. Pereira stepped in closer, face nearly touching Bisping's. Security swiftly intervened, placing arms between the two men. No punches were thrown, but the body language said it all. This wasn't a stunt or promotional gag. This was personal. Context matters. Why Pereira snapped now? To understand Pereira's anger, one needs to look at how he's been portrayed by analysts in the past year. Since moving up to light heavyweight, Pereira has stunned the division with his brutal finishes and ice-cold confidence. His KO of Jan Blachowicz and subsequent win over G Prochaska turned heads, but analysts, Bisping in particular, questioned whether Pereira had the well-rounded game necessary to defend his title long-term. Many fans viewed this as harsh criticism, especially given Pereira's meteoric rise across two divisions. The Brazilian powerhouse, who famously dethroned Israel Adesanya at middleweight before losing in the rematch, has built his career on resilience and explosiveness. But to Pereira, Bisping's commentary often crossed the line from analysis to condescension. The final straw may have been a recent podcast clip in which Bisping claimed, "Alex Pereira is a knockout artist, but if you take away that left hook, what's left? Not much." That remark clearly struck a nerve. Social media reactions, fighters and fans take sides. The confrontation quickly spread across platforms like wildfire. UFC stars, journalists, and fans chimed in with polarized takes. Conor McGregor tweeted, "Haha, Pereira ain't playing. Bisping been running his mouth too long." Sean Strickland, never shy with words, posted on Instagram, "Bisping's always got something slick to say but never in front of real killers. Pereira don't smile, he slays." Even Daniel Cormier offered his perspective on his YouTube channel. "I think Bisping underestimated how much that criticism weighed on Pereira. Alex has the heart of a warrior. He takes stuff personally." Meanwhile, fans on Reddit and Twitter were split. Bisping was just doing his job. Pereira needs thicker skin. Pereira is a killer and a gentleman. Bisping keeps talking down to him. I'd be mad too. Even Adesanya stans and Pereira haters had to admit, Alex showing emotion made him even more compelling. The bigger picture, analysts versus fighters. This incident has reignited a long-standing debate in MMA. Where is the line between fair criticism and disrespect? Bisping is not the first analyst to face heat from fighters. Over the years, we've seen similar conflicts, from Dominic Cruz calling out Daniel Cormier, to Tony Ferguson blasting commentators for lazy analysis. Fighters are warriors who dedicate their lives to preparation, and casual dismissals can feel like a slap in the face. But analysts argue that if fighters want praise, they need to accept critique too. Bisping, a former champion and one of the UFC's most vocal personalities, walks that tightrope daily. But with someone like Pereira, a man of few words and deadly intentions, the risk of miscommunication is always high. Nate Diaz versus Max Holloway? A dream fight in the making. While the drama unfolded between Pereira and Bisping, another storyline emerged that sent fans into a frenzy, a potential clash between Nate Diaz and Max Holloway. What started as casual trash talk has evolved into legitimate buzz. Holloway, fresh off his highlight reel KO of Justin Gaethje, is looking for a massive payday and legacy-defining fight. Nate Diaz, always circling the UFC orbit even when technically a free agent, has hinted that he's ready for one last war in the octagon. Dana White added fuel to the fire during a press scrum. Would I book Nate versus Max? You bet your ass I would. Two legends. That would blow the roof off the arena. Stylistic breakdown, war of attrition or masterclass of violence. Nate Diaz and Max Holloway are made from the same mold. Volume strikers, cardio machines, granite chins, and fan-first mentalities. A 5-round fight between the two would be guaranteed chaos. Holloway throws the most significant strikes in UFC history. Diaz bleeds, smiles, taunts, and keeps marching forward. This wouldn't be a tactical chess match. This would be a symphony of violence. In fact, some analysts argue this could be better than Diaz versus McGregor or even Holloway versus Poirier too, simply because both men love a bloody brawl and would welcome the punishment. Chael Sonnen recently said, "This is the fight we didn't know we needed." Holloway versus Diaz would sell out Madison Square Garden in 5 minutes. Nate's motivation, legacy over everything. Nate Diaz has never chased belts. His chased moments. After fighting Jake Paul in a boxing match, Diaz hinted that he wanted real fights again. A return to the UFC seemed unlikely, until now. Nate recently said on X, formerly Twitter, "Max a real one. Let's run it. You know where I'm at." It wasn't a call-out laced with venom. It was mutual respect. But respect doesn't mean hesitation. If this fight happens, it could very well be Diaz's final stand in MMA. And what better way to go out than in a fight with a Hawaiian demon? Max Holloway's motivation, violence, and validation. Max Holloway has always been a people's champion. His mantra, "It is what it is," masks a fierce hunger for greatness. After being denied a 4th shot at Volkanovski, Max's desire to define himself in other divisions took over. His knockout of Gaethje proved he's still one of the most dangerous men in any weight class. And a fight with Diaz. That's legacy, payday, and fan service all in one. During a recent podcast appearance, Max said, "I love Nate, but if they book it, he's catching hands. I don't play once that cage door closes." Fan reactions, goosebumps, and memories. The fan base is buzzing. Memes, mock posters, fantasy breakdowns. The Diaz-Holloway storm is already brewing. Some fans called it Stockton versus Wison, while others dubbed it UFC's farewell love letter to real violence. Polls online show a 50-50 split in who fans would root for, a rarity in today's tribal UFC culture. What's next for Pereira and Bisping? Fallout and reflection. In the aftermath of the confrontation, both men seem to be taking a step back. Pereira posted a cryptic photo on Instagram, a calm waterfall with the caption, "Silence is strength." Bisping, meanwhile, addressed it on his podcast, saying, "I respect Alex. He's a beast. Maybe I was too harsh. We move on." UFC has not issued any statements, though rumors suggest Dana White privately spoke to both men and asked for professionalism ahead of Pereira's next title defense, potentially against Magomed Ankalaev or Jamahal Hill. Great. Here's part 2 of the 4,500-word article, continuing the deep dive into the Alex Pereira versus Michael Bisping confrontation, the Nate Diaz versus Max Holloway dream fight, and the broader implications for UFC storytelling, media dynamics, and fighter legacy. The Pereira dilemma, a champion without a country. Alex Pereira is a man of few words and many knockouts. He's also one of the most misunderstood champions in modern UFC history. Despite holding titles in 2 divisions and defeating names like Israel Adesanya and G. Prochaska, Pereira remains underappreciated by casual fans and scrutinized by pundits. Perhaps it's because he doesn't speak fluent English, or because his quiet demeanor doesn't fit the usual promotional mold. But when someone like Bisping, who has built a second career on analyzing fighters, questions his skill set, it hits differently. Pereira isn't just defending his record, he's defending his culture. In Brazil, warriors like him don't talk much, they deliver. And when someone repeatedly pokes at that silence with sarcastic jabs and tactical dissections, it's bound to create friction. That's why the confrontation with Bisping mattered. It wasn't just about a single comment. It was about respect. Pereira may be a soft-spoken artist of violence, but in Manchester, he made it loud and clear. The era of taking verbal shots at him without consequence is over. Media and the modern fighter, a relationship under strain. The Pereira-Bisping incident is just the latest chapter in the ongoing tension between athletes and commentators. In a sport like MMA, where fighters risk their health and futures every time they step into the cage, being dissected for entertainment doesn't always sit well. But there's an unavoidable paradox. Media exposure is essential for a fighter's career, yet it also puts them under a microscope that can distort who they are. Analysts like Bisping, Cormier, and Cruz know this better than most. They've walked that tightrope themselves. In a sport built on authenticity, the lines between criticism and character assassination can blur quickly. What makes Bisping unique and controversial is that he doesn't sugarcoat. His takes are blunt, British, and sometimes biting. And when aimed at a man like Pereira, who prefers stoic power to verbal warfare, it can feel like disrespect rather than analysis. UFC's balancing act, promotion or provocation. It's worth asking, did the UFC see this clash coming and quietly encourage it? Over the years, Dana White and the UFC have increasingly embraced drama outside the cage. Fighter feuds, social media spats, and backstage confrontations now serve as unofficial promo trailers for future events. Think about Khabib versus McGregor, Masvidal versus Leon, John Jones versus everyone. Was the Pereira-Bisping confrontation organic or subtly stoked? Insiders say no cameras were meant to be rolling, but with so many smartphones backstage, nothing stays private for long. Regardless, the UFC won't mind the headlines. The moment trended globally, and Pereira's next fight just became must-see TV. What's next for Pereira? A legacy worth fighting for. With the Bisping confrontation behind him, Pereira's focus now shifts to the next threat. Names circling him include Magomed Ankalaev, a grappler with power, posing the same stylistic threat Bisping warned about. Jamahal Hill, former champ looking to reclaim the throne Pereira now wears. Jan Blachowicz too, a rematch that would answer lingering questions from their razor-thin first bout. But beyond opponents, Pereira's real battle is for respect, not just from analysts, but from history. 2-division champions are rare. Pereira didn't just win belts, he did it in record time. And yet, he's still talked about as a one-trick pony by some. That might be his biggest motivation now. Not knocking out an opponent, but the perception that he doesn't belong with the greats. If he keeps winning, even Bisping will have to admit, this man's more than a left hook. Meanwhile, Diaz versus Holloway gets realer by the day. While Pereira and Bisping were throwing verbal elbows, another narrative caught fire. One rooted in legacy, fan love, and raw violence. Nate Diaz versus Max Holloway is gaining traction like wildfire. Reports suggest both camps have already been approached. Holloway's team loves the matchup. Diaz's camp, they've gone quiet, which, in Nate's case, usually means something's cooking. What makes this fight so perfect? Stylistically, both men are high-volume strikers with insane chins and cardio. Culturally, Stockton meets Wison, 2 streetwise warriors with cult followings. Narratively, Max is surging. Nate is a legend on the edge of retirement. The timing is perfect. Breaking down the X's and O's, Max versus Nate. If this fight happens, here's how it could play out inside the cage. Round 1. Max uses volume to establish rhythm. Nate, as always, starts slow, absorbing shots, flipping the bird, and taunting. Round 2 to 3. Diaz finds his groove, landing sneaky combinations and opening cuts. Holloway grins, answers back with 4-punch combos, and talks back. The crowd is losing its mind. Round 4 to 5. A war of attrition. Blood everywhere. Neither man backing down. Holloway might edge it on points, but Diaz, with a late flurry and trademark Stockton slap, steals hearts once again. Decision. Likely a Holloway win on scorecards. But Nate's legacy, untouched. He'd walk out win or lose with his arms raised, a middle finger in the air, and fans chanting his name. Fanbase frenzy, nostalgia meets the now. Nate Diaz and Max Holloway are rare in MMA, fighters who transcend wins and losses. Fans don't love them for belts. They love them for the chaos, the purity, the realness. For Diaz, this could be the final chapter in an epic saga. For Holloway, it's a chance to cement himself as a legend slayer and move toward either a lightweight title shot or mega money bout. Either way, the stakes are emotional more than strategic. And that's why fans are losing their minds. The broader implication, the UFC's era of myth-making. This entire week, from Pereira versus Bisping to Diaz versus Holloway buzz, highlights a deeper shift in MMA. The UFC is no longer just a sports league. It's a storytelling machine.